Hello, everyone. Let me know if you see me. I just had to re-log in again. There was some I guess I got kicked out, but hey, I'm here. Let me know if you found me. Let me just see here. All right, we are up in the tropics, out, I don't know where this would be, but I would like to visit Bora Bora one day. That would be amazing to go to something tropical like that and live there for a month or something like that. So if you have found me, make sure you can tag others who might not be able to find me yet. And sorry, I'm just seeing if I popped on. I see 6 eyeballs. Perfect. I see Tina joined me. I see 6 eyeballs. There we go. Awesome. And I see Vivian and a few others. Make sure you drop a hello. If you are joining me live or on a replay, please put your name there so that we know that you've joined us and watched this live. And sure, this has different people who will jump in and watch this. Hi, Elsa. Oh, thank you. The blue, I feel like I'm in the tropics. But I was going to say with different people would join in because I know some people just are like, I want to learn nutrition and macros. And then there's a certain group that's like always about muscle and always wants to build muscle and about muscle. And so that's why I kind of vary it from time to time, sometimes nutrition, sometimes workouts, sometimes mindset, but they're all important, right, in the end. So hi, Maricela, good to see you. I'm going to be chatting with you on Sunday, so I'm looking forward to that. Hi, Adrienne, good to see you. I know you're on a program that you feel really good about. Hi, Charlotte, Maria, and Sherry, awesome. All right. So as I was preparing for this live, I was like, oh my goodness. I asked a lot of questions on that initial post and I was like, I am not going to be able to cover this. This is like going to take me 4 hours. And if you guys, some of you might remember, I did a muscle sculpting masterclass a long time ago. And that's why there was that, because it's so complex. So I'm not going to be able to hit every topic that I mentioned, but this just means there may be another live. And obviously, as you guys know, that other program that's coming down the line really soon, I have put that muscle sculpting masterclass as part of the bonus material in there. So there's going to be even more complex things that I will cover in that course in terms of hormones and things like that. So just kind of a heads up in regards to that. So hi, Shanika. Hi, Marjorie. All right. So if you're just joining us, welcome to the Fierce Women community where we sculpt powerful bodies and champion mindsets. This live is great for the summertime because as weather gets hotter, you're in your bikini or you're wearing less clothes, you might want to be able to see your muscles more, or at least a very good toned sculpted body, right? So on here, before I dive into it, I actually want to know how many people on here really want to build more muscle. So if you're like, I want to build more muscle, I want you to put build more muscle below, okay? Put it in the comments there, okay? Or what area of body you really want to build more muscle in, like your shoulders, your glutes, your quads, like what is it that like is hard for you to build muscle in? It could be everything, but you maybe tell me, what are you wanting to build more muscle in? Okay. And while you do that, I'm going to quickly go through some wins. I wanted to give a shout out to Tana Humphrey. She just came back from a tropical place, maybe not exactly like this, but Mexico for 2 weeks. And I'm just really proud of her. She did a workout almost every single day she was on her vacation, with exception of one, but she was consistent throughout her 2-week holiday in Mexico. So give her lots of hearts for that, because one of the keys to making sure you have great muscle development is consistency. So Tana, I'm just really, really proud of you. And I see lots coming out. I'll address this right away. I also want to give a shout out to, and I knew she would be on here just because her goal is always to build muscle, to Vivian, Vivian Bilal. I don't know if I said your name right. I can't say French really well, but Vivian, she started her new workout program last week. And I was just looking at her metrics because her metrics are always incredible. And she's lost up to 90, she's lost 97.82 inches in her body in belly fat and visceral fat and like back fat and all of that. But she's gained 102.63 inches in her body. So when we track, you can really see what is being taken off and what is being added on. And I was actually looking at what are some of her really big gains. And so I don't know if she's going to laugh at this, but her forearms have almost gained 2 inches each. Now, 2 inches on your forearm is pretty intense. And that's, your forearms are going to grow when you lift heavier weights, right? So she's grown 2 inches almost on each of her forearms, and her legs. One leg was 3 point something inches, and then the other leg was 2 point something, but it averaged that her legs had grown about 2.7 inches each. And so that's a big increase in her muscles. And so just really proud of you. Since this is a muscle building live, I thought I should give you a shout out for that, because I know you're working really hard. And one of the things I said to her with her new program is I want you to start to lift heavier and start to get those weights in. And we're going to talk about it in this live, right? So, and as well, I wanted to give a shout out to 𝙎𝙀𝙀𝙀𝙀. She's on here. Just a thank you to her. I know she's doing a phenomenal job teaching the FFF group coaching program, and she really goes into detail with each of the ladies on the workout sessions, on technique and how to execute the workouts well. I know Tracy, I think you had 𝙎𝙀𝙀𝙀, Vivian, you've experienced 𝙎𝙀𝙀𝙀, and she's just such a great and patient coach. So I just want to give her a shout out for that, because knowing the right techniques to know how to execute it really makes a difference in your muscle building, right? So thank you, 𝙎𝙀𝙀𝙀. She's like Miss Do It All. And we made a joke yesterday again, because I saw, sorry, there seems something in my eye. We saw each other, and then she's wearing her tank top, and then we make a joke always about 𝙎𝙀𝙀𝙀, because she has these like crazy arms, right? Genetically, she's gifted with like really great shoulders. So we always make the joke that, of course, I was like, just give her more donuts, just give her more donuts. And she laughs, because we know that donuts go to her shoulders. She just gets massive shoulders. So so that's our joke with 𝙎𝙀𝙀𝙀𝙀, but no, this is awesome. All right, I see lots of comments coming in. Thank you everyone for joining. I see people say majority want to build more muscle. Adriana wants to build more muscle, especially core area. Okay, awesome. Legs and arms. Phyllis, I see Chris Brown, you joined. Maria, build more muscle on legs and glutes. Oh, Chris Sarah, you're here. Awesome, of course, because you want to compete. Elsa, build more muscle, arms, legs, middle section. Have never been able to get rid of stomach. So in terms of Elsa, in terms of the stomach, that is nutrition. That is nutrition, like belly fat. But if today's live is about building muscle, so it's going to be, they're connected. But if you have belly fat covering your abs, that's a different issue. That's going to be another live on belly fat or nutrition. But in muscle building, for sure, like if you want to build sculpted muscle, that's today. Yes, 𝙎𝙀𝙀𝙀𝙀 is phenomenal. Exactly. Yeah. And Vivian, you deserve the shout out. And hi, Alicia, good to see you. Okay, so let's first of all establish something here. And I'm going to be doing some comparison kind of talk between like muscle building, like I guess as a guy versus a woman, because I guess a lot of times in the building muscle, we talk about things like, oh, I want to be sculpted, but I don't want to look like a guy, or, and is this exercise for a guy, or should I do this, or, and there's a lot of questions between like training and training methodology, right? So the first thing I want to start with is there's really no exercises that are like, oh, this is for a guy and this is for a girl, okay? Or like this is for men or this is for women. Men and women can do exactly the same exercises. Our our physiology overall, like in terms of our muscles and everything, are very similar. And so there isn't like a gender specific exercise, but I would say that a lot of times it's preference in what you do. So for example, women tend to like to work on their glutes a lot. So you'll see a lot of women in the gyms working on their glute. And men like to work a lot on their chest. So you see men tend to do more chest, but both men and women can do lots of chest things and lots of glutes and all of that. So there's not a specific exercise for like men or women, okay? But there is a difference in perhaps how you apply out the exercises. That's where it can be a little bit different, how you apply out the reps, the sets, and how the exercises are arranged together. It does matter if you understand the different responses that women and men have. Okay, so I'm just going to start with that. Hi, Tana and Kelly and Gianna. I see all of you jumped in. It's good to see you, Gianna. It's been a while. But let's talk about a few misconceptions. And if you said this before, I want you to say, I believe this before, or something like that. I'm just curious if that's you. So one of the first misconception is, I get this a lot, especially as I train a lot of the women, is, you know, I don't want to, I just want to make sure I don't build too much muscle, or I don't want to build too much muscle, or I don't want to be bulky or look like a guy. So have you said that before? Hi, Gianna. Thanks for, yeah, it's beautiful. Hey, one day I'm going to go to these beach areas. But yeah, have you ever said, I don't want to look like a guy. I'm afraid I'll build too much muscle. I don't want to be bulky like a guy. Like if you've said that before, just say I said that before, bulky. This is more just like general for me to know. And the reason why I say this, because I just had a chat with two gals who's going to be joining the FF program. They're in the dance scene. But like, you know, they says again, like, I just want to make sure I don't have too much muscle, or, you know, that comment again. And so it came up over the weekend. And so I really want to address that, is that, first of all, you do not have the same amount of testosterone as a guy. A guy has 15 times the testosterone of you. And so it's impossible for you to get big and bulky like a guy, unless you're on something or taking some sort of hormone thing, right? But it's almost impossible to look like a guy. So that's one of the first misconceptions that I feel like, yeah, Maricela, you've heard that assumption before, that I think affects a lot of women's ability to build muscle. This is why I'm bringing it up, okay? A lot of it is in that mindset of like, you think you're going to look at like a guy, or you're going to build too much muscle. So if you believe that, that's the first thing to get out of it, of your mind. Secondly is, women actually, they build muscles at about half the rate of men in terms of if they were training at the same time, the same program, all of that. They build muscles at about half the rate of men. So you're not going to like suddenly just like jump out with like these Hulk muscles. You know, it's so hard for women to actually gain muscle, that you want to make sure that you focus on like just doing everything possible to build even a little bit of size on you, because it's going to take you so much longer than a guy. And then not to mention, when they take longer, especially as women, you guys are aging and having menopause and all the things I've spoken about hormones, which we're not getting totally into today, is maintaining the muscle. So if it takes you that much longer to build it, you also have the problem of trying to maintain what you built as you're building it, right? So it takes you even half the rate of men, like they will build it faster if they were on exactly the same program. Yeah, Vivian, you noticed that. Hi, Cindy, good to see you. So just focus on wanting to build lots of muscle, and don't be worried about like, if I go up to this weight, am I going to like get bulky? Like, if you say that, I just want you to stop. I want you to make sure you're like, no, I'm just going to like go up those weights when I need to get the muscle I need, right? So that's a second misconception, right? Yeah. And Jana, we're going to talk a little bit about that. I'm not going to get into nutrition too much, but yeah, it is protein, but it's also lifting methodology. So let me say this again. If you want to decrease fat in your body and you have belly fat, that is going to be largely nutrition. When it comes to building muscle, it has a huge component due to your lifting, your methodology, your technique, the way your routine is built, and nutrition on the back end. Okay, so yes, it is important, but the routine and the building is so important. Yes, and then number 3 misconception is that if you believe this, I want you also put that, is that oftentimes women think that they can't do a lot of the moves that men can, like maybe heavy bench presses and pull-ups and full push-ups, you know, to the floor, and, you know, like some of these maybe heavier things, and they just think they're not able to. And that's one of the misconceptions that also holds back a lot of women from like doing more. And like one of the best ways to build your back is pull-ups. Yeah. You want to have an amazing back, pull-ups. Yeah. So it's like, how many of you fall into trap of like, oh, no, I can't, that's for more for guys. If you have fallen into that, again, put it below, let me know. Because then that stops you from building a phenomenal back or a phenomenal muscle, right? Oh, Gianna, yeah, you've fallen for that before. Yes. So all 26 eyeballs on here, if you've kind of thought some moves are for guys or some moves are for women, is to, kind of equal out the playing field a little bit more. Okay. So here's the thing that I want all you guys to listen carefully. And this is really, really, really important. It's really fascinating too. So tons and tons of studies have been done on the muscular building potential of women compared to men. And so even though we may build slower or, sometimes like the size and stuff that we talked about earlier, the muscle building potential of women it is the same. So they've studied this. So like, let's just say if a guy trains in this routine and a woman trains at this routine, the guy can increase their muscle mass and strength by 15%. The woman can also increase their muscle strength and size by 15%. So they're the same, right? So then you're like, wait, but why do Zeta, you said, oh my God, pull-ups are my goals. Yes, Zeta, we're going to get you to pull-ups because you want a great back. It's like, you got to do pull-ups. Yeah. So, so that means that you have just as much potential to build amazing muscle and sculptedness and all of that as much as a guy. Okay. So if you believe, like, for you, you're like, okay, I want to build more muscle, right? And I have as much potential as a guy. Okay. Put it below if you're like, yes, I need more muscle. Okay. Put muscle below if you believe you need more muscle. But I just want to kind of address that as you put that you want to build more muscle, that why do men look more muscular and all of this type of thing? Or if you guys have your sons, like Lynn has a son who just just goes to the gym and looks like sculpted. So there's a couple of things. So the first thing is, we have the same muscle building potential as men, but men start off with more muscle in their body baseline and more strength. And the size of their fibers is bigger. Oh, Chris Brown wants more muscle. That's for sure. Chris is like, I need more muscle. And so does Tana. That's awesome. So to kind of go back to the starting point, the start point. So men's start point have more muscle mass on their body due to testosterone, and bigger muscle fibers. So this automatically gives them the advantage of a greater start, right? But so if they have a greater start versus a woman, but we have the same potential, it means that there's a couple of things. It means that this guy if he doesn't train, a woman can supersede him, obviously, because their potential is just as much. Or if they start at the same time, they could improve at the same rate. And if this guy stops, you could supersede that guy. So it's actually really cool because it shows that we can actually build as much muscle as a guy or sculpt certain parts of our body, right? Gianna says, I'm at 60 pounds of muscle at 114 pounds. Awesome, Gianna. I know you're working really hard. So you can look more like your son, Cameron. Exactly. So that's one of the reasons why they look more sculpted, although we have the same potential. There's also a second reason. Now, typically, not all, but men have lower fat percentage. We know this, right? At baseline. And I asked a question in my post yesterday, why do some women look more sculpted than others? And it's not all across the board, but most of the time, sometimes when you see someone with more muscle on their body, it's because they have a lower fat percentage in their body, okay? And so because guys have lower fat percentage, they just look more sculpted faster than you, right? Because they have lower fat percentage plus baseline more muscle plus baseline bigger fibers, right? So that's why they look more muscular, but we have the same potential to build muscle, Okay. And so that's something to keep in mind. Sorry. So I see Elsa said, I have difficulty with pull-ups, plus I have a rotator cuff surgery. I'm afraid to pull up as I do not want to get injured. Yeah. And of course, if you have an injury, then of course, right, we may have to change it. What I'm trying to dispel here is kind of women feeling like, oh, I'll never like get muscular or have really good muscle building potential like a guy, or I have to do different exercises, that type of thing. I just kind of want to dispel, although you're not going to be bulky like a guy, because like you just don't have 15 times the testosterone, right? The other thing though is to keep in mind that why women can actually build as much, if not more, muscle than a guy based on training levels, right? Like maybe this woman trains a lot more hypertrophy training versus maybe this guy trains circuit training. I don't know, maybe he's more of a marathon runner. Like this girl for sure can probably build more muscle, right? But it's to understand the hormone differences. And again, I'm not going to get into a lot in this live about it. It is in that Muscle Sculpting Masterclass. It's in that, it's placed into that next program. But men use like a lot more testosterone in their body, right? For muscle building, we know that. But in order to use testosterone, it has to be free floating testosterone. It has to be unbound testosterone. And men have a little bit more so they can utilize it, but women actually cannot utilize a lot of the testosterone. We do have testosterone, but it is not usable form. It doesn't get released into our body the same ways. So women actually tend to utilize things like human growth hormone and insulin growth factor, IGF-1, for muscle building over testosterone. So we don't use testosterone as much. We use other hormones as well as estrogen to help build our muscles. So it's okay that we don't have as much testosterone, because we can actually up our HGH and IGF-1 in different ways, through lifting, through proper nutrition and all of that, which is in that muscle sculpting class. The ones who attended this a long time ago, you remember I spoke about this, that IGF-1 and all of these hormones, if we can learn to maximize these hormones, you actually can build more muscle, even if we don't have as much testosterone. Okay. So, yeah, so if you're like wanting, again, some of you did attend this Muscle Sculpting Masterclass, but if you want to learn more about that Muscle Sculpting Masterclass, put the masterclass below. It is in that part of the next program. So it's like when I release that program, then you'll be on that list to know about it. So put masterclass or Muscle Sculpting Masterclass below. Awesome. Hi, Derek. Hi, Sherry and Lori. I think it's Michelle, actually. Michelle, Sherry, and Lori, thanks for joining. So put masterclass below if that's something you want to have access to for in the future. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about what is the difference with how women need to train. Okay, how women need to train. That's slightly different than a guy, like similar exercises, same, so like the exercises can be the same, but the differences in how it's applied. Okay. So the first thing is, okay, so all the people putting masterclass is awesome. So it's like, I'm not releasing the masterclass, I'm releasing a full-on course. So it's going to be in that. So you're going to go into the list. When we release that course, you'll be notified of it, and then you can make that decision of like that course and all that. Okay, so we'll put you onto the list. So so the first thing is women are more fatigue resistant compared to men. Like we are Energizer bunnies. Have you ever been told you're an Energizer bunny? I've been told I'm an Energizer bunny a lot. Okay, you just keep going and going and going. So we're more fatigue resistant overall as women. We can do more reps and sets, usually more than a guy. Like, and we can just keep going. We don't really get as tired. Whereas a lot of times guys will just be completely burnt out, right? They're like, no, I can't do it anymore, right? And I'm not saying for trained high level athletes. I'm saying in general, okay? But we are more fatigue resistant, and so there's a couple of reasons for this. Always, I'll say that so you know this. So this is because men and women actually have similar amounts of differences in fast twitch and slow twitch fibers, type 1 fibers, type 2 fibers. Again, there was another live I did about this. We do have similar amounts, but like men have larger kind of type 2 fibers, and so they're more powerful. Like they can like produce more power at once. We know this. Men are more explosive, more power based, right? Type 1 fibers are more endurance based and a little bit more steady state, and we can keep going and going. And so we just have better utilization of our type 1 fibers. And this type 1 fiber, we utilize our energy system a little bit better, where we can just keep going basically, right? And also because we have less muscle mass in general compared to a guy, it takes us less time to recover. So the body doesn't need to, imagine if you had to refuel a massive, I don't know, I'm just going to think of a massive bus, okay, like gas, and you have a little tiny little car, you're going to fuel up the little car faster than the big bus, correct? So this is partially why, because like we have like less muscle mass for the body to refuel and get going again. So we're more fatigue resistant, and we have better utilization of our type 1 fibers, okay? So this is going to mean that as a woman, you do need to ensure you have more reps and sets in your workout. And I'm going to probably bring that up later again. But in your training, you don't want to have a program exactly like a guy. You want to make sure that you do have enough reps and sets to really get those muscles working and fatigued. It takes way more for a woman to get fatigued than for a guy. And so the ones who have done my workouts before, you'll know that, especially when you're first new to it, you'll be like, whoa, this is I get so tired doing your workout, Clarice, because there's a reason behind how I program it, that I want exactly the way that I want to burn out that muscle. Okay, it's a little bit different from a workout that your guy friend or husband is doing. If you ever my clients, if you ever show my program to your husband, they will be like, what? Why would you do that, right? It wouldn't make sense to them. It would be a little bit different, okay? So, hi, Barbara, Yvonne, no problem. Glad you're here, Eileen. Yeah, we will tag you on the replay. So first of all, that's one of the differences, okay? How many of you say, just put below, do enough reps and sets or don't do enough reps and sets, okay? So put it below, do enough reps and sets or don't do enough reps or sets, okay? Yeah, Tracy, you say you really had to transition and work up to your workouts, but they are fantastic, Tracy. That's awesome, Tracy. And Tracy, we're getting there. I want to give you another program soon. So once you get back onto this, I want another one, because I want those muscles to be worked more. But yes, I know you're getting back on track here, because I know you had that surgery. So don't do enough. Lisa, do enough. Good. Awesome. Hi, Don. Good to see you. Yes, FFF is a real challenge, Zeta, because you're getting used to the workout formula, right? So awesome. So the next thing is quicker recovery. So this is another difference with women. So women recover much faster than guys. And that's why we're kind of that Energizer bunny, like, just I can like keep going and 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 keep going. Sometimes guys will be like, it's exhausting watching you at the gym. And it's like, because you just keep going and you recover faster. Of course, I'll have to rest a little bit, but I just don't have to rest as much. And there's a reason behind that. Yeah. You can thank your beautiful estrogen. Okay. Estrogen actually has a very protective effect on muscles, and it limits muscle damage and helps you repair muscle faster. So it's actually a really good thing that we have estrogen, because it really helps us get faster back on track. And so this also means that, you do enough, Tanya. Yes, that's awesome. Yes, on the program, right? But yeah, this also means that we don't need as much rest time as a guy. Like, if you look at standard protocols and even standard training manuals, I'll say like, in order to build muscle, you need to rest 3 minutes or 2 to 3 minutes, or they'll say certain things like that. And I think that there is some truth to that if you're at a max level. So if we're saying powerlifting and you've maxed your 1 RM, which is your 1 max rep, like the heaviest you could ever lift in your life, you do need recovery time. Like I'll be honest, when I'm lifting those 70-pound in each hand, which is 140, which is more than my weight, I cannot go right away. Like I have to rest, right? There's just no way. Even if I try to lift it again, there's just no way, right? So when you're hitting a 1 max rep, like you do need longer rest time, but most of us are not training at 1 max reps. We're training at lower weight ranges, right? So when you're training at lower weight ranges, you just don't need so long. You need a little bit, but then as soon as you're ready, just go back into it. That's kind of one of my philosophies around training, is like you don't need like 3 minutes to 5 minutes of like recovery time, like sometimes some of these other programs will indicate. And if, I know this is going to end up on YouTube, if you're a power lifter or you're training another protocol and you need to rest that long, that's awesome, because there's a reason probably why you have to train so long. But I speak to more of the main hypertrophy training for women and even women this age range that have trouble building muscle. So you need to go faster. So if you're sitting there resting quite a long time, I would probably say speed it up a little bit. And I've trained my clients, and I forget who it was. I forget which client, but I said, are you taking a lot of breaks in between your sets? And they're like, yeah. Like, and I'm like, no, you gotta like keep going a little bit faster. And that's another thing, that if you're resting too long, then that could hinder your growth. And the reason behind that, just to again explain it, is it takes more for women to break those muscles. How are you going to build new muscle? Break the muscle, right? Micro tears in your muscle. So if we're more fatigue resistant, it's harder to rip the muscle. Then it's going to take a little bit more to rip the muscle, right? So does that make sense? Tracy says, yes, women definitely do not hog the workout benches at the gym as long as the guys do, even with more reps and more sets than the average guy does. Tracy, you're so funny. Oh, yes, yeah. And women do sometimes different exercises, right? So, so number 3 is women, actually, we do well with heavier weights and load training. There was a study that was done on like, okay, like this group of women do like lighter loads, more sets. These type of women did like heavier loads and less sets and blah, blah, blah. They did all this study. So what they found is that although total volume of your training matters, as in like how much you lifted the entire session in total amounts of weight, it does matter. They did find that for women, we actually need heavier loads. I know some people are like, what? We need heavier loads in our muscle. And that's a lot of times why women do not build the muscle potential that they do. We have the same muscle building potential, but we do not go up the weights. If I said to 𝙎𝙀𝙀𝙀, which I know that she had me push her a lot, I'm like, she may average like to lift 35 pounds for her chest presses. When she trains with me, I'm like, no, you're not at 35. Let's go 45, 50. Put that in your hand. Let's go. Right. Because it's like you would underestimate what we can do. We actually do better when there's heavier loads on us. But the caveat to that is you do need good technique. And of course, as a new beginner, if you're within your first 3 to 6 months of lifting, I would say, obviously, that's don't listen to that. You need to make sure your technique is right. You have to make sure your muscular adaptation is proper. But if I'm speaking to a little bit higher level, 𝙎𝙀𝙀𝙀 says so true, because I know 𝙎𝙀𝙀𝙀 really well. That's why, she'll pick up the slightly lower weight and I won't let her do it. So women actually do really well with heavier weights and load training. That back you see in the photo that I posted yesterday, that was not accomplished with light weights, like not light weights at all, like really, really heavy weights to get that back. And so it definitely was not a 20 pounder, definitely was not 30 pounders. You have to use heavy weights. But like you have to make sure you have right technique. So if you don't have the right technique right now, or you're too new, I want to make sure that you're not going off and going to the gym and suddenly like picking up something heavy and hurting yourself. I'm kind of speaking to my more advanced lifters right now, that like if you came to do a training session with me, you would not be holding light weights in your hand. That's for sure. It would be like really heavy stress, that load. The load is really important, but it's not the only way to build muscle. But the studies that have done is that women do well with heavy loads on them, and that your body can take more than you believe. And most women underestimate their own abilities. Okay. So heavy, less reps. Lisa, no, heavy, more reps. What did I say? Women actually do better with reps and sets. So if you ever get a high level program from me, it isn't a lot. Oshone, are you on here? Did you do low reps with me? I know she'll attest to this. No, there was no low reps. There was higher reps and heavy, right? So really like higher, and so, but it has to be properly progressed and properly programmed, right? Oshone said 20. That's me being nice sometimes, you know. Oshone is like, yeah, she remembers some of these workouts. So that's number 3. Number 4 is, and I'm gonna also say this, okay, because you know, if you are a trainer, we have lots of trainers here who's studying their training certification. When you read your books and your textbooks, they have certain like, okay, if you want this, do this number. If you want this, do this number. And so for your tests, write that exam and go with that. But in terms of real application, it's not always textbook. And I don't always go by textbook. I go by experience, and I go by what I have seen has worked for my body, for multiple competitors, and what I had built. I don't always go by textbook. I believe that it's good to have a general range, but I don't always agree fully, right, with the general ranges. So depends, Sherry, because it depends what muscle you're talking about, how much is heavy, right? So like back, you know, back, if you are on a machine, you know, I think one arm, I would be rowing 140 pounds on a machine though, because I can then leverage that thing on it, right? You're not going to pick up a 140-pound dumbbell, right? So it depends on what we're saying, because I'm utilizing a machine to get that kind of effect. So it's you have to have very specific individual programming to get that type of pull, right? So number 4. So this is for anyone, not anyone who's in menopause or you know, you don't have your menstrual cycle anymore, but this is really interesting for those of you who still do. And as a competitor, my other coach actually had talked about this with me, is that you, in your menstrual cycle, you will have different phases where you're stronger or less strong. You are stronger in your first half of your menstrual cycle, and you're less strong in your second half of your menstrual cycle. So you want to kind of optimize more building within your first half of your menstrual cycle, just because of the hormones that are in place. So you want to go harder during the first half of your menstrual cycle and less hard in the second half. And I know that's not applying to people who are in menopause. I just wanted to drop that cool fact in there. Number 5, women tend to be typically very quad dominant. Okay. So in terms of them being typically more quad dominant, women should focus a lot in building a lot of strength in their posterior chain, a lot in their hamstrings, their glutes, their back, their low back. Typically, women are very weak all through their posterior chain. So, you know, working and focusing and making sure a program has that in there. Usually if you have a coach or trainer that is, oh, sure, I just saw it. You said 40 total. Yeah. But just so you know, Oshone, my other coach made me do 50 reps of something. So just so you know, I not just to you. So we've done high rep ranges. But in terms of the programming, make sure someone who programs for you really has that ability to really go into your posterior chain and really develop that like backside of you, because then you're more overall balanced as well. Okay. And then number 6 is, this isn't surprising for most of you, is that women tend to carry a lot less muscle mass in their upper body. Okay. So women have to focus particularly more into their upper body if you really want to have this amazing sculpted body. It's so much typically easier for a woman to develop their lower body and their lower dominance. It's a lot harder to develop upper. And so really focusing on more types of workouts that have those push-ups and pull-ups and rows and other things that target the upper body is going to be very advantageous to you as a woman. And you look amazing. I mean, you go out and you wear your tank top, you just look amazing when you have a great upper body strength, right? So focusing on some of these things. So hi, Isabel, thanks for jumping in. So in terms of application, I'm going to summarize this a little bit again, and then we're going to go on to some principles around strength conditioning and building. So for you as a woman, for all of you who are watching, you want to make sure that you have more reps in a session. You want to train more frequently than less frequently, because it does take a lot more to actually break your muscle and tear it to build muscle. So if you are only training, let's say 3 days per week, it's probably better to train 5 days a week. Of course there is exceptions, but it's just better to train more frequently than not. You don't need super long rest times, but I will say that obviously as you go up towards your max rep and it's heavy, super heavy, then yes, then rest time does take a bit longer. And it could be why one of the reasons guys do take a little bit longer too, is because they usually are max power. They're a little bit heavier, so they do need more rest time, but we don't need typically as much rest time. So make sure you're not resting for long periods of time. Go heavier when you can with proper technique and foundation. So go heavier when you can with proper technique and foundation. Number 5 is, if you have your menstrual cycle, is make sure you maximize your first half of your cycle, and then you can be just a little bit less with your second half. You want to balance the back of your posterior chain. You really want to work a lot of those muscles in the back that is often left out. Your back isn't really used at work, or your chest usually is like contracted. You want to really make sure that your back muscle is being worked, and the back of your legs. A lot of women have very weak hamstrings and the back of glutes. Maybe if you sit a lot, you might have weak glutes. So just making sure those are there. Now, there's a lot of things to consider. Obviously, most of you who are watching this love muscle, probably on a program, probably with a coach, probably doing something. But if you are watching this and you're not on a program that has a lot of these things taken into account, and you feel like you're just free flowing it, or you're just following anything on YouTube, just make sure you're careful about that, because again, they need to be sequenced a certain way in terms of the number of reps, the sets, and the way that they operate from the first exercise you do all the way to the end. There's a way that they have to be sequenced. So put program below if you're like, okay, I need more guidance on the exact programming of my workouts. Put program below, okay? So keep those things in mind. All right, so let's talk a little bit more. It's kind of going into more details here, but there's 4 principles of strength and conditioning that you want to consider when you're like building muscle. So there's specificity, individuality, variety, and progressive overload. The one I want to really talk about is progressive overload, which I know you guys have heard a lot on. But let's talk about specificity, individuality, and variety first. So specificity is meaning that you have to have exercises that really target into that specific muscle line that you want, okay? So if you, I'll just use an example, okay? So because I am training I am training powerlifting, but I'm also training Olympic lifting, because I love learning all these different elements of how you train. Now, if I was to say an Olympic lifter they have specific things to train for the sport, for sure. Like they're amazing, like crazy amazing. But then are they specifically targeting into just the hamstring line, or are they specifically targeting the rear delt line? No, right? That's not the purpose of Olympic lifting. The purpose of Olympic lifting is power, speed to get a heavy weight over your head. Okay, so but specificity means that if you want to train specifically muscle lines within your body, you have to make sure your program will actually hit those specific lines in your body at the right angle. Right. And so again, I know 𝙎𝙀𝙀 knows, and obviously I have different programs for a lot of you that are with me. There's a reason why some of these moves are in there, because I want to hit certain lines a certain way. But 𝙎𝙀𝙀, you remember that we would do a move and we would do it in many different angles or grips or different things to produce the different lines in the muscle. Okay. So you have to be very specific in the way that you hit the muscle. Okay. So that's one thing. And the individuality is customizing it for the individual. So obviously this is different for every person. So if I have to be honest, 𝙎𝙀𝙀 doesn't need a lot of work with her shoulders. She just doesn't. It just will look like that forever. It just looks like that. But 𝙎𝙀𝙀 needs a lot of work with her. Like I know when we first started, her legs we really needed to work her legs a lot. So my specific coaching had to be individualized to her, and she stepped on stage, right? So when you step on stage, you have to have really good shoulders, but I just didn't have to work that on her that much because she's just dominance. Her dominance is in that. So you need a program that works your non-dominant things that you're just not as good at, right? So you know, I'm very dominant in I'm very dominant in my frontal, like I'm very strong in my chest and different things like that, but I could probably work more on my rear delt, you know, and my triceps, you know. So like everyone has weaknesses, and so a good programming will kind of, as they program out for you, they'll get better and better at individualizing for you and customizing it for you, right? But let me say this: if you're not consistent to begin with, make sure you're consistent first. And then if you're consistent, then your coach can then build it more and more towards your body, and then like a sculptor sculpting in the lines. Okay, so individuality. So you need specificity, individuality, and variety. So variety wise, Marisela program, awesome. And we're going to talk on Sunday, so I'm excited to chat with you about the programs. So and the third one is variety. So what I mean by this is I don't mean muscle confusion too much. I don't mean like jump around to YouTube for every different move. But what I do mean is that you do need different exercises that can hit the muscle group in kind of different ways. So what do I mean? So like a dumbbell chest press is very different from a bench chest press. So all of you who are more advanced lifters, go try it. A chest press with a dumbbell is very different from a barbell chest press. And so you do need variety that is worked into the program to help you develop better, you know, I guess, muscles. And I can get into more science behind it, but it's also big because, well, what does your body have to do with a dumbbell, right? It has to stabilize more. There's other muscles that are being worked in as you lift that dumbbell versus a barbell. But a barbell changes the angle of your wrist and the hold of the wrist, so where it is versus where a dumbbell is held, right? And so for my clients, I often coach you on how you hold a dumbbell chest press is different. That would be changed on a barbell, right? So variety and having a program that has different elements in it that still hits that muscle or hits the muscle at different angles is really important, okay? So before I go on, there's a lot here. So specificity, individuality, and variety. Do you feel like you have these things? And if not, which one do you feel like you're missing? Specificity, individuality, or variety? Okay, put that below. Which one do you feel like you're missing? Specificity, individuality, or variety? Okay, put that below. By the way, hi, Isabel and Belinda for joining. So let's talk a little bit about progressive overload, okay? So progressive overload is a common term used in bodybuilding, right? We know that, well, actually, no, take it back. In weightlifting in general, like any sport needs to have some sort of progressive overload, okay? So progressive overload means that because your body will adapt, you need to keep pushing the difficulty of what your muscles are going to do, right? So, and so you can do this in a few ways to progressive overload. The first thing is you can progressive overload through increasing volume, increasing total volume of what you lift, okay? So if you were to increase volume, so I just want to make sure, yeah, if you guys are with me, make sure you type something below, like, because I sometimes last time there was like one time where people were typing and then I was not seeing anything. And then I was worried that I wouldn't see something. So just make sure sometimes put a like hi or like yes, that I know that you guys are with me. Okay. So the first thing in increasing volume is you can talk about total numbers of reps and sets. Okay. So if I was to give you an example of if you lifted 10 pounds, okay, I'm seeing some hearts and yeses, good, awesome. 10 pounds, 10 times, right? Then that would mean you lifted it at 100 pounds. 10 pounds times 10 is 100 pounds, right? So if you did 3 sets of whatever it was, maybe it was bicep curls, then it would be 300 pounds. Okay, because you would be 10 reps times 10 is 100 times 3 is 300 pounds. So if you had 3 different exercises for that same muscle group at the same weight, even though this is just an example, then you would have 300 pounds times 3 other exercises. That would be 900 pounds. So that means that your total volume of what you lifted is 900 pounds in that session. Let's just say that's the only thing you lifted is 900 pounds. So what we're saying is that in order to actually progressively overload is that you need to lift more of this over time in your sessions so that maybe it moves from in that session you lift 900 pounds, let's just say, or 2,000 pounds, you would eventually lift 3,000 pounds total, including all your reps and sets together. So this is a part of progressive overloading. That's why having a program that actually starts to increase the amount that you're doing is really, really crucial, because actually your body responds to the total volume that is given to it. Okay. So, if you're not good at math, I might have lost you, but the only thing I can say is you need to slowly over time increase reps, sets, and your weight to create that progressive overload, okay? So if you believe that in terms of progressive overloading, you have to be able to track properly, okay? So if you're not tracking properly, you'll never really know how much you're actually lifting. So if you believe that you need to be better at tracking or having systems to track, I want you to put tracking below, okay? Tracking is a key part of like you learning to actually have more muscle. Otherwise, you could be going to the gym for a long time and never see any results because you're not tracking what you're doing, right? So put tracking below if you feel like it's something you need to improve on to get better at, to know how much you're actually lifting. Because then it could be very easy for someone to, hi, Debbie, you just popped in. Yeah, awesome. Good to see you. So tracking is important because if you're like, oh, I'm not feeling good today, right? I'm having a mood. And you go in and then you just like, you lift 800 pounds. And then the next time you're in, you're like, oh, I'm feeling better. I'm going to lift 900 pounds. Then the next time you're in, You're like, I'm feeling really good. You're at 1,000 pounds. Then the next day you had a bad day and you go in and lift 700 pounds. You can see like how your volume is not consistent. So it's impossible for you to create progressive overload into your body, right? So again, progressive overload is about your total volume of training. So again, are you tracking? Are you not tracking? So if you feel like you need to get better at tracking, I want you to put tracking below, okay? Debbie, been here for a while to test the comments and loving the live. Okay, awesome. Good. I'm glad I'm seeing it. Awesome. I am seeing it. Hi, Michelle. Hi, Johan and Adrian. Thanks for popping in, okay? So put tracking below if you feel like that is something you need to work on. Now, the second thing around progressive overload is increasing your ROM. So ROM is range of motion, okay? So you have to increase the range of motion of what you're doing to increase the stress around that joint, okay? So if you can move more through your actual range of motion, you have a greater ability to build more muscle. So that's kind of why if you're actually relatively flexible, not hyper flexible because you can get injured, but relatively flexible, you actually have an advantage over guys because you actually can achieve a much better overall development than someone who isn't flexible. Now, if you are somebody who's not flexible, then that's why you have to work on better flexibility, because better flexibility actually allows you to move better through a range and stress the muscle at a greater range, okay? Better at tracking, although I track a lot in my head. Okay, Kat, yeah. Well, I would say probably, it depends on your goals. I would say if you're not seeing maybe as much muscle growth as you want, I would say tracking would be really important to know exactly how you can progressively overload those muscles. But yeah, thanks for sharing, Kat. But yes, so ROM is really important, okay? So an example would be a squat, okay? So, you know, if you go to, you know, just above 90 because you just can't squat that low, you'll do okay and you're still going to get good muscle development, but you're not going to have as great of a muscle development as someone who can squat lower than 90 and someone who works on full range of motion and squats all the way down. A deep squat will develop way more. And I'm doing pause squats right now because I'm doing powerlifting. And man, I'm telling you, this stuff is like hard, right? So you just I feel like all of my quads. I'm like, oh my goodness, you know? And so your ROM is going to be better if you can hit a bigger range, right? I'm not flexible. Oh, well, no excuses. Yeah. So if you're not flexible, work on flexibility. I mean, you can't change that right away, but I'm just saying that that's a great way to progressively overload your training. And remember, when it comes to training, we're not talking about results that's in 1 month or 2 months or 3 months. If you want to see amazing muscles, it's going to take years. So if you have a long-term mentality on it, then you know, okay, I got to work at this to get a better muscle development. I got to do the stretch programs that Clarice gives me so that I can actually go further in my squat without butt winking. You know what a butt wink is? When you squat and your butt winks down. So I will work with a lot of my clients on butt winking. So if you butt wink when you go down, then that's poor technique. So you can't go as low. You got to correct the technique, improve your flexibility, then go lower on your squat. Right. So it's a lot around proper technique and then improving the range around your shoulders. So if you want to have even better, chest development, having a greater range is going to help you with a better development, but not at the cost of injury. So if you have poor flexibility or potential joint mobility, and some of this could be genetic as well, but if it's just a flexibility issue, like you're just not able to stretch far enough, then you're not going to get as much muscle development as you want in your chest. So these ROMs are really important if we are talking about higher level technique and to really build and sculpt the line and really get the starting point of the muscle to the end point of the muscle. So bodybuilders are are why they look so phenomenal is a lot of times they work on the full development of the muscle in the full range, and it's very hard to get the full range. It's very easy to get the middle range. It's really hard to get the full range. So that's another thing you want to make sure you're working on. And so again, if you listening to this are like, okay, I need to work more on specific techniques in my lifting, I want you to put technique below, okay? If you feel like you need more work on specific techniques, like maybe you do have problems squatting lower, and that doesn't mean squatting lower is just a flexibility in your hips. A lot of times squatting lower is actually something to do with your ankle. It's actually your ankle mobility that might have to be improved. So if you feel like you need to work more on technique, put technique below so that you can improve that muscle building, okay? So put that below. All right, so let me know if you're still with me. Drop some hearts. I see it's like, I see some comments, but not all. Drop some hearts if you're still with me. I see BJ dropped in. Good to see you. Awesome. Let me see if okay, I see a comment from Jennifer. So Jennifer, working on flexibility has made all the difference with me. Yes, because you didn't stretch that much prior to my program. So I think that has really helped. Yes, no problem, Gianna. Awesome, awesome. I see lots of hearts coming in, so perfect. And then, so yes, put technique below if you feel like you need more work on the technique side. Now, the next thing is the difference between hypertrophy training versus strength training, okay? They are very different. Good, I see Kathy with me. Awesome, I saw her little heart come in. So there's a big difference between hypertrophy training and strength training. Today, obviously, I'm not getting into the science, but on that muscle sculpting masterclass, I actually show you guys a diagram. If you guys were with me with that, if you remember, there's a difference in the way the sarcoplasmic increase versus the actual myofibril increase. There's differences in how your muscles can actually increase in size. Today's talk is not going to be about that. I'm just going to talk about the philosophy behind hypertrophy training and strength training, okay? So hypertrophy training is about building muscle size, okay? And to build a bigger muscle size, this will come from increasing training volume over time. So what did I say above for women? If you want more muscle size, you need more sets and more reps to get more muscle development into the body. And that is a huge principle behind hypertrophy training. And a lot of the specificity, the like individuality, the hitting at different angles is really important, right? Because why? Well, in your rear delt, you have your rear delt, but you also have maybe sort of like the upper part of your rear delt and the lower part of your rear delt, and maybe there's a move that works the lower part of your rear delt and does it into the connecting muscle, right? So you hitting at different angles is really important. So like, let's just say an overhead pull. So when you're on a bench and you pull overhead, that is often for your back, but that movement is very different than you doing a pull-up. It's similar muscles at play, but which one's going to be activated more when you're doing that muscle? So that's why it's like you need to increase rep sets, but also like specificity of how you hit it. So hypertrophy training is about building muscle size. Okay, remember this. And then the second thing is strength training. Yes, no problem, Zeta. That's you can watch the replay. Elsa, I see the technique, and Tracy, flexibility and technique that you need to work on. Yeah, and Tracy, I do believe technique is still something we're working more and more on with you. But strength training is increasing muscle force, okay? So hypertrophy training is increasing muscle size. Strength training is increasing muscle force in that muscle. So how much force can you produce in that one push or in that one rep, right? So if you want to become stronger in like your muscles producing more force, then you have to lift heavier. So the loads have to be heavier and increase it to usually at about 85% of your one rep max, okay? So then you can get stronger in the muscle. So one is stronger in your muscle, one is size of the muscle, okay? So remember, size of the muscle doesn't always relate to strength of the muscle, although they overlap often, okay? So let me say that again. The size of a muscle does not always relate to the strength of the muscle, although they overlap often, okay? So why do I say that is because I have seen people who have larger muscle size that aren't as strong, and you've seen, I'm sure some of you have seen sometimes some smaller guys that are really compact looking, and they don't necessarily look huge, but man, are they strong, there's this guy at this other gym. He's a tiny Asian guy, but he can outlift some of these other bigger guys in his powerlifting lifts, and he's just strong, right? So it's not the same. Okay. Yeah, it's very interesting, Maricela, because there are different types of training protocol. And, like I mentioned this before, and I know 𝙎𝙀𝙀𝙀 is such a great example because she's been willing to train and get coaching and all of that. But it can be very easy for someone like 𝙎𝙀𝙀𝙀 to not work at her muscles because she naturally looks big. And so that's something that I coached her a lot on in the past, because when she came to me, she had big shoulder muscles. So she can easily get away with big shoulder muscles and just look like she's strong. But I know that when she first started with me, lifting 15 pounds shoulder press was really hard for her. And it was hard. And then when I gave her 20 or 25s, she didn't like me at all. She was like, why? Like, this is so heavy. I can't lift these over my shoulders. But I remember saying to her, I said, like, I don't want you to just look strong. I want you to actually be strong, right? So there's that, you can look like you're strong and build size, but there's also the part that you need to build strength. Now, which one you emphasize depends a lot on your goals, okay? I'm not currently competing in bodybuilding right now, so I'm interested in Olympic and power because I just so super interested in like, how do you pull a heavy weight over your head? And so super interested in like how you build more strength, right? But it depends on your goals. So if your goals is like, I want to build more strength, then your training protocol will look a little bit different. Your programming will look different. If your goal is hypertrophy, I want to have bigger muscles, then the programming is going to look different. And so this is something that you want to keep in mind for yourself. If you have a coach working with you and, understands this, that's awesome. And if you don't have a coach working with you, you just want to evaluate your goals. What is your goals? And does your program reflect the goals that you actually want? Now, I will say that if you are new to training, you get newbie gains. How many of you are new to training? Put new to training below. Okay. If you're new to training, put new to training, because you get newbie gains. Okay. So what are newbie gains? So newbie gains are, because it's actually an advantage for you, is you will gain both strength and size in your muscle all at once. Okay. Yay, for all of you who are new to training, okay? You gain strength and size all at once. Oh, Maricela, we need to talk. You're going to get some great gains when you start the program. Oh, Yvonne, you too. So when you start FFF, that will be great. So what that means is that when you're new to training, because anything you do, any lifts you do is a stressor for your body that it never encountered before. Therefore, it will actually increase in both size and strength, which is like, yay, that's bonus for you. However, for my advanced lifters or intermediate level lifters, you're going to get those gains initially and then it plateaus. Okay, so how many of you know that? The ones who are more intermediate to advanced lifters, you will plateau. So the reason that you will plateau is, Kathy, you're not really new to training anymore. No. Kathy, you went through FFF plus you went through Muscle Accelerator. So you are only new to training within your first, I would say 3 to 6 months of training. If you're past that, sorry, you're not a newbie anymore. You can't have newbie gains after that. Okay, not newbie gains after that. So then once you plateau, then at that point, it really matters what kind of program is given to you. So I'm going to use Vivian as an example. The reason I told Vivian, because she was working a lot of techniques and programs and moves that were from the FFF program, because I wanted her to correct technical things. But I said to her, I actually want you to, do you have this machine and do you have this? I asked her about it because I said, I want you to actually lift heavier now. The reason is that in my head is that her programming has to be specific to hypertrophy training, which is bigger muscle. So I already knew that when I asked her about, I need to design your next program, that I was specifically aiming towards going towards her hypertrophy training. Because once you hit past a certain point, you'll stop gaining much more. And now the divergence will come from how your programming is programmed out. Is it going to be programmed out in a hypertrophy way or a strength training way or in something else, circuit training or something like that, right? So after a while, you will no longer separate, you won't be able to gain muscle size and strength like all together. And your training protocol will determine, are you going to build more size into your muscle or are you going to build more strength into your muscle? Okay. Yeah, Kathy, not a newbie anymore. Exactly. Tracy, I want to be strong and have good balanced body with good muscle showing. Yes. Yes. So the thing is, the other thing we want to talk about is, could you do both? Of course you can do both. But it's like you have to program a very specific way. And even some guys will say, so they do power, what is the word? Power bodybuilding. I think that's what they use. Power bodybuilding. So meaning they're working power and strength and bodybuilding together. But that's the thing is, you can work those things, but then I think that you have to really understand your programming then. Okay, that's why it's kind of more complex than people think. And I find a lot of women, they either don't really have the right programming for like the hypertrophy side of it. Like they might just have a really good workout program, but not hypertrophy. Or they may be training maybe more strength than they realize, and they're not actually building more size into their muscle. Okay. So this, again, so if this is you're listening and you're like, I actually don't know if I am for sure building my programming is the right way, I want you to drop programming below if you haven't dropped it above, because it doesn't matter how you program out. And I'll say this, if all you're looking for is just generally to be healthy, to just go exercise, then I think any program would work. But if you have specific goals on building muscle and actually specific goals of like, I want actually more size, like I want to see more sculpted size, then you have to train specifically hypertrophy training. If you want goals of lifting heavier, like I want to get my max deadlifts, I want to get my max chest presses, then you might want to train more powerlifting and strength training, right? If you want to know how to have more power and speed, like a lot of athletes. So a lot of athletes like football players and soccer players, a lot of times their drills are actually Olympic lifts. So snatches and cleans and jerks, which is what I'm learning right now. The reason why they are given that is because they have to develop power. And so they are now given a protocol to train snatches and clean and jerks to build speed and power. So for me, I like to be super fit overall. I want to be fast. I want to climb walls. I want to be able to do stuff. So then I have a goal to train these other elements, right? So that's why you have to go, well, what do I want in my fitness level? So this goes back to your goals. So if you don't know your goals, then you need to sit down, think about your goals, or talk to a coach about your goals. And if your coach knows your goals, then and they know how to program, then they can program specifically for you, right? And Joanne, if Joanne, you're on here, Joanne wants to compete, and I know that we went back and forth. She's kind of in the holding stage, but she wants to. She's now made the decision to compete, and so her program's going to look very specific, right? So put programming if that's what you feel like you need more help on. Hi, Kim, and hi, Michelle. Good to see you. Sabina says, sculpt it and lose fat. Yes. So Sabina, if that's your goal, then you probably want to work on nutrition to make sure you lose fat. And then sculpted is going to probably be hypertrophy training for you. So hopefully that makes sense. And one last thing here. Oh, thank you, Debbie. You're so sweet. Actually, one of the reasons, just so you guys know why I like training different elements, is I want to have as much maximal knowledge to help all of you. If I understand exactly how bodybuilding works and exactly how powerlifting works and exactly how Olympic lifting works and how I know all the different protocols and training, and that's why I can speak more confidently to you, all of you, on like, this is what you need if this is your goal. And this is how you need to program, and how you program for your weight training, your cardio, and your HIIT training, which you should have all three. All of you who are listening, you need all three. That changes based on your goals, right? How much cardio you do, how much weight training you do, and how much HIIT training you do within your programming changes based on your goal. So that's another thing to keep in mind. And maybe just quickly, I know a lot of you are who are watching, do you have a combination of all three? Cardio, weight training, and HIIT training. Do you have all three in your programming? So put all three or need all three in there. Okay, all three or need all three in there. Okay. One more thing before we wrap up here is, even though today's talk is not going to be about nutrition, because I do so many lives on nutrition, I just can't end the live without referring to it just a little bit, is you can have the best training protocol and the best workout designed for you and for your body, individual, specificity, all of that. But if you don't fuel your body right, you're not going to build the muscle. Okay. I had a guy that spoke to me yesterday and his name is Jay. Some of you may know him. And he said, oh, I'm eating 100 grams of protein. I looked at him. I was like, wow, I eat way more protein than you. And I was like, I'm thinking like, and of course he recognized, that's why he was saying it to me. He's like, I realized I was eating not enough protein. I'm like, yeah, you definitely are not eating enough protein, so it's like nutrition is so key, and you can feel it in your muscle. So if you are training hard and you're not understanding your nutrition, and Gianna said earlier, protein is really important, but what she didn't mention, which she may not know this, is that the muscular building potential of women is important for protein. And well, you need all three: carbs, protein, and fat. Okay. But women need more fat. And there's a lot of scientific study about the muscle building potential of women and what kinds of fats they need within that to help them with a better muscle development. So your nutrition is really crucial, and amounts of how your protein, carbs, and fat are distributed is really important to your final look of your body. So if you are on here and you're like, I actually don't even understand, well, first of all, programming is one, but I don't understand how to fuel the body properly, then also put nutrition there, because your nutrition and your macronutrients as well as your micronutrients are crucial. In the Muscle Sculpting Masterclass, I actually, part of that muscle sculpting class, the ones who attended that, you remember there was a slide on the types of nutrients and vitamins and things that you need to take to build muscle more. There's certain vitamins that you need to take more of, or to ensure you have, to ensure that the muscle build is there. So if you need more help with nutrition, put nutrition there. Oh, I see all three. Yeah, you got all three, Jennifer. Awesome. Yeah, you didn't like the HIIT though when I initially gave it to you though, but you're getting better at it. So Vivian says, yeah, in all my years of training, I've never gotten the results I'm getting now with your program. That's awesome, Vivian. And just you wait, the current program I built for you, we're going to get some more muscle on you because it's designed that way. So I'm excited for you. And Kathy, you need HIIT. Yeah, Kathy, well, you have some of my programs. So just make sure when you're training on your own now, because I know you're on your own, just make sure you're not forgetting the HIIT training in there that I had incorporated for you, right? So yes, I was just going to say that nutrition is really key. So put nutrition if you're not sure about it. And again, if you're wanting to be on that list about the Muscle Master Sculpting Masterclass, that you might not have, if you weren't part of the group when I did that, you wouldn't have seen that. That's going to be part of that new program. So if you want that, again, put Muscle Sculpting Masterclass so that you can access that training. And that training had not only the session that I taught it had the PowerPoint Majority, that had all the muscle pictures with the fibers. And then it had the slide with the, I think the different vitamins you have to take. And then it had 3 muscle building recipes as well. So if you guys remember that. So if you want to have potential access to that Muscle Sculpting Masterclass, put that below as well, okay? So majority, you want to build strength, awesome. So if you want to just build strength, that's not hypertrophy training. So that would just mean that you would actually definitely need to lift heavier, and you want to be closer to your 1 rep max, about 75 to 85% of your 1 rep max when you are lifting. Okay. So yeah, and Tanka, thanks for joining. Tana, all 3. Yeah, you got all 3, Tana. Yes, so that is all. I know I kind of jumped around a little bit because I realized I actually had to cover so many things. And I know I probably didn't answer every question I said on my other teaser. But what good news is that means that there is probably another live coming down the line on muscle building, because it's so complex and there's more I can speak about type 1 fibers, type 2 fibers in your body. But hopefully this added value to all of you, and it kind of gives you some ideas of how you need to train to build more muscle, especially as a woman. That was my goal for this live, and for you guys to understand sort of some of these little nuances between like how a guy trains and how a woman trains. And the best news is you have just as much potential to build muscle as men. We can be mean, lean, and sculpted. Okay, don't be mean, but be lean and sculpted. Okay, so sending you all lots of love, and yeah, drop a heart and make sure you subscribe to my YouTube channel, because this one's going to go live on there, and we are posting a lot of my previous lives on there. So if you're newer to the group, you definitely want to be part of that YouTube channel, because we post a lot of my previous lives on there, and we're posting every day into the YouTube channel. Okay, love you all, and see you all next week.